Honestly, to this day, I still remember all the terrifying nights we've been through, because sometimes that entity would come close to our door. It was extremely cold, and it would come close to our door, shake our door, and hit it at the same time.
Some time ago on the channel, we learned about a truly shocking case involving an entity that was seen on different occasions in the Viborata area, very close to Mar del Plata. If you haven't seen this video, I'll leave it for you in the first comment and in the description so you don't miss it. Sometime after presenting this story, I received another one about an entity that might be related or maybe not, but it does have some similarities. And that's exactly what draws attention. In this case, it happened at the Mar del Plata military airbase, where many soldiers witnessed something incredible. And it would be great to know if this is still happening today. Friends, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share this video if you can. All of this really helps a lot so that this story and many others can reach new people. Now then, welcome to a new video. My name is Luis, and what I want to tell you happened to me a few years ago, but even today it still leaves me shocked. And not just me, but also many of the soldiers who went through that place. I don't know if this still happens today, but I can assure you that it was completely real, and several of us confirmed this. In 1991, I served in the military at the Mar del Plata Air Force Base. And it was one night in May that, together with 4 companions, something happened to us. It was just the beginning of many more episodes. We were on guard duty at the officers' club, where the swimming pools, paddle courts, tennis courts and grills were. And one night, while we were in the dormitory, where we were resting, we heard something, not just anything. There were 3 FAL shots, and they came directly from the guard post where one of my comrades was. We immediately dropped to the floor, and it was only a few minutes before the service chief arrived, along with other soldiers, to check the area and make sure everything was okay. They knocked on our dormitory door and asked us some questions that, at the very least, were quite suspicious. Obviously, they asked us if we were okay, but among many other questions as well. They asked us if at night we had seen anything strange in the area or if we had heard any unusual noises at the base. The truth is that we were pretty new, we hadn't been there long. But we still answered no, because honestly, up to that point, we hadn't experienced anything strange or heard anything unusual. Although everything was about to change. When we asked what had happened, they didn't want to tell us anything, but our co-worker was the one who told us everything in detail. A few minutes later, in the middle of his patrol on one of the streets bordering the officers' club, he came across a dark and very tall shadow, curiously matching the same description mentioned in the video from the town of Viborata on Route 2. This dark shadow, about 3 meters tall, was moving slowly. My co-worker ordered it to stop, but it didn't stop, and in fact, he felt like it was coming toward him. For this reason, he fired a shot into the air, repeating the order to stop. And it was at that moment that this shadow moved very quickly toward him, and just before it was about to hit him, it turned in another direction. At that moment, my partner took cover and fired 2 more times, but this time aiming directly at this thing. It was useless. The shadow turned and disappeared into the tall grass at a speed that, according to this soldier, was completely inhuman.
And when the officers came on duty, the officer on duty and the non-commissioned officer who was at the post started to search the area, and they saw it. He was climbing. That shadow, that silhouette, was climbing a eucalyptus tree, but it wasn't on any branch. He was climbing as if he was Spider-Man, stuck to the trunk of the eucalyptus tree. And when the duty officer finds him, he orders him to stop. This thing moves, the duty officer fires a shot at the ground, and it throws itself into the grass and disappears again.
Another night, during a guard shift, another soldier encountered this entity again. This time it was on one of the streets near the runway, about 30 or 40 meters away, and he ordered it to stop. And right after that, he shot at it again, and it disappeared to the side, heading toward the runway. He He immediately called the chief of service, who was at post B, informing him about the whole situation. Together with other soldiers and in a vehicle, they went straight to the place along the runway to intercept it if possible, and that's what they did. This dark entity crossed in front of them and started running, according to their testimonies, about 15 meters ahead of the ship. The strangest thing is that we're talking about a speed of approximately 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. At one point it turns toward the grasslands and vanishes, just like before. That night, 3 patrols went out searching for it throughout the area, but no one was able to find it. And of course, absolutely none of those who were present could explain what it was that they had seen.
But this used to happen often. It started happening often that in that guardhouse of the post, which was post C, called post C, in that guardhouse it would appear to the soldiers, and the one who never believed anything was the non-commissioned officer who was at post C, who was the one who would take the soldiers to do the shift change. And when he came back, one of those many nights he had to stand guard, he was going to relieve the soldiers and bring them so they could rest at post C. He found him standing at the door, the entity. First, since everything is dark and at night there's little light, he thought it was any of the soldiers who was looking outside, called the post, asked if everyone was there, if all the other soldiers were there. They were resting, each one in his own bunk. He asked the soldier who answered the phone that someone is seen standing outside the post, and as soon as the soldier went out the door, he saw that someone was standing on the road and immediately fired shots. They started running and got lost. On a street that went somewhere, there was a tank that had... what are these tanks, like the ones you see in some plazas where water is supplied to a neighborhood? I had one of those tanks, but there was no ladder to get to the top of the tank. And while that silhouette ran toward that
side, and they lost sight of it. A few days later, around 6 in the evening, I was walking with a buddy toward the Soldiers Casino, and we saw something really strange. And I don't know if it has anything to do with this dark entity or not. There was a person in a yellow sweater by the water tank. I'll never forget it. He was waving his arms, like saying hello. We responded to waving our arms and saying hi, without paying much more attention. But even so, we went to guard post C to report this, because it seemed pretty strange to us. When we arrived, we spoke with the post chief and told him about this person. A little confused, he went outside, and at that very moment he saw him too. That is, there were 3 of us who saw this very clearly. His concern and confusion were noticeable because he mentioned to us at that moment that the tank doesn't have a ladder to climb up. He called at that moment by radio to the post near the tank, right where the administration is, and notified the guard soldier, telling him about this person. The soldier goes out and confirms by radio that there was absolutely no one at this tank, but from post C we could still see this person. He was asked again to look, and for the second time he assured us that there was no one at the tank.
The thing is that later, when night fell, the sun started to set and it became night. The soldier who was stationed there suddenly heard a terrifying scream, which made him very alert. And when he looked around, he saw that black silhouette again that all of us soldiers had already seen. We had nicknamed that silhouette the Ninja because it was always dressed in black and ran extremely fast. Several of us soldiers who were there at the official club, those times when they came to help as night was falling, or there was a big meeting and we were the grillers for the officers. There was a meeting, something at the officers club. The others would come, soldiers who worked as waiters, and we would see crossing between the trees this entity Running at a speed, Barbara would hide behind every tree there was, every pine tree.
There were a lot of cases with this entity, I only told you some of the many that were, at least for me, the most significant. But at that time, it was common for the soldiers at the post I mentioned to fire a shot every now and then during the early morning hours, trying to drive away this entity that appeared to them, scaring them. What should be emphasized is that it never attacked anyone. It simply appeared as if provoking the soldiers who were alone and then disappeared. But something even more curious happened and showed us that the ninja, as we called him, was not something new. One of my companions found a writing from the soldiers on a wall inside the shed where we kept the tools, from the class of 70, the one before ours, and it really caught our attention. It immediately said this.
This is for the soldiers of the class of 71. Be very
Careful with the... This message made a clear allusion to this dark entity that was lurking around the base. So, following this same rule, I also left a message on one of the bedroom walls, something similar, and it went like this. Soldiers of the class of 72, be careful with the ninja. He scares you, but he doesn't do anything.
But honestly, to this day, I still remember all the terrifying nights we went through, because sometimes that entity would come close to our door. It was extremely cold, and if it would come close to our door, shake the door and bang on it, the window. We would call the station chief, and the station chief would come to check. And as always, we weren't the only soldiers who could see it, but also those who came to post C, already knowing that this entity appeared a lot around there, they would come very scared. Almost none of the soldiers who were assigned to post C, when they were called to go to post C, wanted to go because they were terrified of the entity. So, well, neither we nor those who were on guard could sometimes sleep peacefully because it showed up many times. This entity appeared
very often. Friends, I would love to know what you think about this case, and I also invite you to watch the previous video where a similar entity appears right on Route 2, heading towards Mar del Plata. I'll leave this video in the pinned comment and also in the description. Thank you for making it to the end of this story. I send a big hug to all of you,